Welcome to Climbing Together, the Small Business Experience. I'm Beth Houtrow, the founder of Climb the Small Business Book Club, and our episode today is brought to us by the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center of the San Francisco Bay Area. Every episode, I talk to a small business owner about a mistake that they've made and what they learned from the experience. Mistakes are inevitable, perfection's impossible, so let's embrace the mistake. And today we're so excited to welcome Maya Gutierrez to the podcast. Maya, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Hi, Beth. Thank you so much for having me today. I have a consulting business where I do, essentially, I like to call it in a nutshell, social justice for preschoolers. But the technique is really to work with educators, the people who are spending a large amount of time of day with children, to give them strategies of how to really have conversations and use different materials like books and toys to teach children the four basic goals of anti-bias education. And those four goals are really about identity, that children have a positive self-identity and can speak to their identity in proper terms. Diversity, so really appreciating differences, between their peers. And also having the proper words of like how their peers are different. And diversity is also about recognizing that we're all different and we're all the same. And, this can be in very many different ways, from, our skin tone to food to, how we celebrate holidays. Then the last two goals are justice and activism. And children really, from a young age, have a really strong sense of like what's fair and what's not fair. So it's really fun with children to read books that are really age appropriate for them and just kind of pose that question to them. Like, how do you think they felt? Do you think that was fair? And, children love to kind of be that chorus of like, no, or yes, and so they'll let you know. And that last piece is activism. So it's like, okay, well, that's not fair. What are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? And it really can teach children really valuable life skills to stand up for themselves, advocate for themselves, and help to stand up for others as well. So that's kind of the idea for my business, was really just inspired, well, partly from my children, and seeing the activities that they do in school and kind of reflecting back on my educational experiences many, many, many years ago, but also kind of thinking about like, have things changed? And if they haven't changed, should they change? And also kind of the background, my career has been in early childhood education. I went to school for human development and have been working in that space for the last 15 or so years.
Nice. Well, I mean, is there a modern time where it's more important to be having these conversations? It's just, I don't know. It's on my mind all the time. And obviously what's happening in schools around the country, it's so important to.
Right. Yeah. And I think oftentimes grown-ups may be worried about a child's maturity level or, like age appropriateness. Like, can we have these conversations with children? And there's a school of thought out there that says we should be having these conversations with children the same way that we teach them basic safety skills, like don't touch the hot stove, or look both ways before you cross the street. Like, these are realities that can sometimes be harmful to some groups. Mm-hmm. And so we should be educating everybody about it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you have a big announcement for today. Is there something special happening with your business?
I do. So this is like a little bit of a separate business. So I think you talk to many entrepreneurs, and you know that once your creativity is unlocked, you kind of open up the floodgates and more ideas come. So I am going to be launching a podcast today, and my podcast is called Fearlessly Divine. What I aim to do with my podcast is to create a community of support for women who basically want to fearlessly live their best lives. I don't think women should feel stuck between, the home life, the career life, and then the self-care kind of falls off the wheel, like the spiritual life, the physical health, all of it, mental health. I think that we should be able to exist in a space where we can support and uplift each other to live in a balanced way in all those areas. And so, in my podcast, I'll be having some solo episodes, but also talking to some different women, different people, and just hearing their stories of how they just really fearlessly went after whatever it is that made their heart happy.
Nice. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it for our podcast. We're here to talk about mistakes. So tell me about a mistake that you made in your business as you were getting started.
Right. So yeah, as I was getting my consulting business going, I think maybe I don't know, relied on like my education and background, and maybe I put some effort into social media, and I was just kind of like, if you build it, they will come kind of a thought process. But then I really realized, and luckily I have mentors around me, and somebody did say this to me, like, Maya, you're not really tapping into your network. As I mentioned, I have, 15 years background in this career, in this field. And so along the way, you definitely make some contacts. And so, when she said that to me, I think when she said it to me, I don't know that I acted on it right away, but then after some time, it was kind of echoing in my brain. And so I was like, she's right. I have a lot of contacts. There's a lot of people that I should be setting up meetings with, just talking to, even if I'm not going to sell to them directly, you never know who knows somebody who's looking for this, who's looking for that, or what so what I was able to do is just to do that precisely, set up a bunch of meetings. Like pretty much, I guess my advice to anybody out there starting up is that you always have to talk yourself up and talk what you're doing. Not from like an arrogant or anything sort of way, but just of like, even just the excitement. I think like when people see that excitement that you have for whatever it is that you're doing, it's a little bit contagious, right? They can see that you're lit up, and then they get excited about it too. And so I think, yeah, I was able to set up those meetings and just talk to people. And then they say, oh, you should talk to so-and-so from so-and-so, or you should look on this website. You should go explore, that sector, that industry. Like it's a little different, but, and then it's just more ideas start flowing from there. So, yeah, I think it was something that I didn't do initially, and I don't necessarily know why. But definitely kind of backtracked and was like, yeah, I do need to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I appreciate it. Like some people don't have a great network in the industry they're in, but like you said, you don't know who people know, right? You don't know. And so even if it's not a person who's the perfect connection, talk to everybody you can about this, put it out in the world, because you don't know what kind of connections can come from your existing network.
Exactly.
And ideally, you do have people in your network who are in the right industry, but even when you don't, it's still important to get everyone you know on board talking about you and celebrate your passion with you. So
yeah.
Okay, very cool. So at Climb the Small Business Book Club, our two big tenets are continual learning and community. So I know that you have a book here today to tell us about. So what's a book that has really kind of inspired you and been a good learning tool?
Yeah. So if it's okay, I could kind of share on screen here. It's called Big Magic. It's by Elizabeth Gilbert. Elizabeth Gilbert is the same author of Eat, Pray, Love. So if anybody out there has read Eat, Pray, Love, this book is just really, she's talking about creativity. So maybe it's not business tips exactly, but she kind of gives tips about like signing your own permission slip. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, and maybe even I can go out on a limb and say women entrepreneurs, we're kind of like second guess ourselves, hesitant. And I know that that's been, my experience sometimes. And, yeah, this book just really talks about like the birth of an idea and seeing that idea through completion and then, just being able to give yourself permission to go after that idea, whatever it is, as long as it makes you happy. And so, yeah, I think after reading this book, I started having more and more ideas. And so I was really grateful. So that's why I'd recommend it to others as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, creativity is a huge part of running a business, right? Whether it's creating new products or services, creating marketing or job strategies. So that's amazing. I love that. I haven't read it yet, but I'll have to pick it up. Mm-hmm. Okay. And our last question today, the podcast is brought to us by our co-sponsor, Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center. I know you're a part of that community. So tell me how being a part of Renaissance has impacted you and your business.
Yeah. So I think, earlier when I was talking about my podcast, I was saying I'm hoping to create this community of women, a supportive space for women. And that's what Renaissance has done for me. It was very much this supportive container of women, all of us really cheering each other on. We all had very different dreams, maybe some with similar kind of related dreams, but like everybody really has their own reasons why. Something I think a big takeaway from participating in different spaces like this is like, don't be afraid to share your idea with others. And I think there's that fear, that thought of like, oh, if I have this great business idea, somebody else is going to steal it. But what I've really learned, it's like the idea is huge, but the other part is like that passion behind it. And so, we can be in this space with all these women and everybody has huge passion behind their own idea. They're not going to worry about taking your idea. And so yeah, I think, and any time that we can be, supporting and uplifting of one another, it just makes for a good time. And, there's been a couple women from the group that I've been able to keep in contact with here and there. And, we're always cheering each other on. And so that's been really just a huge win.
Awesome. All right. I love that. Well, Maya, that is our podcast today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Beth.
This podcast is brought to you by Climb the Small Business Book Club, where entrepreneurs go to learn, discuss, apply, and grow. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or follow us on Instagram at Climb Book Club. And always remember, mistakes are inevitable, perfection's impossible. So let's embrace the mistake.